You guys are not to believe what we have today. You're not going to believe this. This is one of the biggest treasure troves that I've ever seen just out there on the internet for anyone to get a hold of from the Michigan Department of Education. So it is from a state agency just putting their stuff out there for an intrepid person to find and send to me. And how lovely that we all get to take advantage of what we're about to watch today. And you know what? I was going to do a completely different stream today. I was going to do something way different. And then I got sent. Well, it started when someone sent me this. Virtual offerings for Michigan Department of Education, LGBTQ plus students for winter or spring 2023 virtual offerings. The Michigan Department of Education LGBT plus students project is once again hosting virtual professional development opportunities for the school year, blah, 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 blah. And then there's a whole list of workshops that teachers in the state of Michigan can attend through their Department of Education. All the different topics that you might expect to be discussed are discussed. And they just have it out there now, but that's not actually what I'm going to show you guys today, because a lot of these workshops have not happened yet. And so this is just a schedule. FYI, if you're in Michigan, I'm pretty sure you have access to all of this information directly because you're paying for it. But what really got my attention was this here. Recordings of the 2021 versions of these professional development workshops are available to view for those who may be unable to attend our workshops synchronously. Oh, isn't that nice of them? Isn't that nice of them to provide us with all of the recordings to last year's workshops just because? And I have a favor to ask of someone in the chat, because I almost didn't do this stream today. I'm going to tell you why. The Michigan Department of Education, although they are being shady by trying to hide this information, thinking that no one's ever going to get a hold of it, they may be being shady, but they're not being stupid. And the thing that I find very, very suspicious is that when I click in to the videos, which we do have access to and we will be watching today, and we are going to just ignore this little note right here. Please note, the content of these trainings cannot be utilized or shared without the expressed authorized permission of the Michigan Department of Education. You know what, Michigan Department of Education, you are a taxpayer-funded organization, and I really don't feel like I need your direct permission to watch the videos of the trainings that you are putting live on the internet. Well, they're not live, they're recorded, but you're putting them on the internet. It's open, it's there. So why on earth would I have to ask your permission to share it? We're going to come back to that in a second. But the reason that I say the Michigan Department of Education is being smart is because they have turned off downloading these recordings. They have them all on Google Drive. And for some reason, and I can't imagine why this might be, for some reason, the Michigan Department of Education does not want us to have access to the videos of these recordings. And I kind of thought, I was like, should I do this stream today? Because I could. Well, Scott, this is what I'm asking. This is what I'm asking, because I kind of almost didn't do this stream because I was like, I want to get all the files for all these recordings before I let the Michigan Department of Education know that I have access to all of their recordings. Well, yeah, well, that's what we're gonna do today, but what I would love is if someone could help me out, and I'm gonna put the Google Drive link in the chat. If anyone knows how to get around the Google Drive provision preventing us from downloading these files, because I know there's a way to do it. I've seen people do this before. If only Kino was here. We gotta get Kino in the chat. If anyone can help me to get around the provision that says I can't download these files, I would really like that because, to be honest, it is entirely possible that after this stream today, the Michigan Department of Education is going to take away our access to the files because they don't want them shared publicly for some reason. I can't imagine why. But I decided to do the stream anyway for a couple of reasons. Number one, we can FOIA all this information. So they can take down the links all they want. But this is all taxpayer funded information that has already been live on the internet. We can FOIA absolutely every single bit of it. And so even if they take the links down, we can still get access to it. Reason number two, I decided to do this stream today is because if the Michigan Department of Education takes down access to this information simply because they know that the public has access to it, I think that says something, doesn't it? It's kind of like the Transgender Training Institute last week, and we're going to talk about them in a second. It's kind of like when we did that spy stream last week, and by this organization called the Transgender Training Institute, and they canceled the training in the middle of the training because they didn't want us to watch what they were actually going to teach. And it's kind of like, what's so dangerous about what you're teaching to teachers who are teaching elementary school students that you don't want us to have access to this information? Why are you hiding from us? What don't you want us to see? So if the Michigan Department of Education takes away our access after we watch the video today, that is going to give us a vital piece of information about them not wanting the public to have access to this information. The taxpayers funded this. There's no reason why the taxpayers shouldn't have access to it. I have a ton of community members in Michigan. Like, some of my most active community members are in Michigan. It will not be hard for us to get access to this information. So I thought, F it. We're going to watch it. We're going to see what's what. Now, there are a lot of trainings on this list that we could have watched. They have Laying the Foundation, Understanding the Identities and Experiences of LGBTQ plus students in Michigan. They have When Bias Gets in the Way, How to Reorganize or How to Recognize and Address Barriers to Supporting LGBTQ plus students and families. They have Listening to Understand, LGBTQ plus students discuss their experiences in Michigan schools. They've taken the link down to that one. I think it's a little funny that they've taken the link down to the ones they did with students. So that might be worth FOIAing. I'm just saying. The Power of GSAs. Getting your school's club up and running. This is GSAs are one of the primary grooming tools that they use to socially transition kids' genders in schools. They got a whole training about that. Stay current legal and policy issues pertaining to LGBTQ plus students and staff. But here's the one I want to watch today, because this is 81 minutes. These are all almost an hour and a half training. All of them. This is like dozens of hours of video that needs to be watched. Here's the one I want to watch. Safe, supportive, and inclusive classrooms. Practical strategies for affirming LGBTQ plus students. In this interactive workshop, we explored day-to-day dealings educators have with their LGBTQ plus students and their non-LGBTQ plus peers in the classroom. We also explored a variety of topics around LGBTQ plus student safety and inclusion in the classroom. Participants will leave with concrete strategies they can immediately implement in the classroom. This workshop was geared towards teachers, but all are welcome. So that's the one I've selected to watch today, but let me just show you the other trainings on this list. From the school bus to the school board, school-wide policies and best practices to support LGBTQ plus students, making your student information system work for you, accurately reflecting student gender identities in your student information system. And then they've got a note down here at the bottom about this project. The Michigan Department of Education LGBTQ plus Students Project is led by the Michigan Department of Education in partnership with the Michigan Organization on Adolescent Sexual Health. It is supported by a grant from the Michigan Health Endowment Fund with additional funding from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services and Eaton RESA and GISD, I don't know what those are, through grants from the Center for Disease Control. This is literally funded by the CDC, guys. Funded by the CDC. And the Prevention Division of Adolescent and School Health. The contents are solely the responsibility of the Michigan Department of Education. That's good to know, isn't it? And do not necessarily reflect the official views of the funders. And it's got all sorts of other stuff too. It's got resource guides. Let's just look at the resource guide for the one we're going to watch real quick. This one. Also something. I can download this one, can I? Oh, I can download that one. Huh. So we've got our agenda here. Setting the stage, opener introductions, understanding the classroom experience of LGBT plus students, exploring the impact, what you can do, best strategies, what our best practice strategies to creating inclusive classrooms. And then it's got all sorts of stuff from teaching tolerance, which is uber woke, glisten, fucking glisten, the human rights campaign, woke, glisten, 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 GSA network, glisten, Anti-Defamation League, teaching tolerance again. Crazy, crazy, crazy. So I thought we would just watch this training and just see what's what. Are you guys with me? Are you guys ready to see what they're teaching the teachers? Remember, the reason that we watch these trainings, we have trained for stuff like this. On my channel on Friday happy hours, we watch woke training from start to finish. On Saturday, for Socialism Saturday, we watch real socialism from start to finish. These are the moments we train for, people. We know how to sit here and watch content that might be less than exciting to find out what's really going on and to hear it from themselves. What's going? Who is this Kim person, Zipidus? Who is this Kim person? I don't know who this is. Let me know. So we're going to watch this training, and I don't care how the Michigan Department of Education feels about it. But before we do that, I have a couple of updates. First, I want to talk about the Transgender Training Institute. You guys remember last week that we did a spy stream for the Transgender Training Institute in which we spy streamed their gender inclusive K through 5 classroom educational session in which they were training teachers on the internet how to make their kindergarten through 5th grade classroom inclusive of all genders. And a funny thing happened midway through the training is they found out I was streaming the training live on the internet and they decided to stop the training because they didn't want people to see what they were doing. Now, an interesting thing happened this morning. I woke up this morning to find that I had a copyright strike on my YouTube channel. Why would I have a copyright strike on my YouTube channel, you might ask? Because the Transgender Training Institute was so desperate to get their training off the internet, where they are training public school teachers how to create gender inclusive K through 5 classrooms, that they sent a copyright claim to YouTube to get YouTube to issue me a copyright strike to pull their training off the internet. However, if you scroll down in this here article, if you would still like to watch what we did, guess what, folks? It's still on Odyssey. Bing! It is on Odyssey right now for everyone to see. It's also on Rumble. It's also on Rockfin. I also have the raw file. Too bad. So sad. Transgender Training Institute. The funny thing is about them, they actually hadn't said anything in that training that was like uber crazy by the time they canceled it. Like, we've seen worse. We've seen significantly worse than what I saw in that training. I mean, there are cringy moments here and there, but there was nothing that was extraordinary about what they had taught so far. But the fact that they are so desperate to get their training pulled off the internet, the fact that they don't want you to know what they are teaching teachers that are teaching your kids in school, that tells us a lot, doesn't it? That tells us quite a bit. So we've still got it. Ain't nothing they can do about it. And they can suck a dick. Don't train teachers to indoctrinate students into gender ideology when they're in kindergarten, and we aren't going to have no problem. I don't care if people are trans. I don't care if people are gay. I don't care if people are non-binary. It makes no difference for me. I just don't want you teaching people to be non-binary in kindergarten. That's not acceptable, Transgender Training Institute. Not acceptable at all. Sean says, Carlin, you are doing amazing work on wokeness. Thank you for what you're doing. Keep it up. I really do appreciate that, Sean. Guys, if you appreciate my work on wokeness, one of the things you can help me do to keep it up is by becoming a paying supporter on my Substack. That's Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. Now, last night, I did actually reach my monthly goal of new paid supporters on my Substack. So I want to thank everyone who showed up this month. I wanted to get 50 new paying supporters this month on Substack, and I did it ahead of schedule. But guess what? Next month I want 75 because now I know. Now I know that you guys are capable of doing this. And so let's just get a head start. Let's get a head start on next month's goal. Make it easier to reach. And the reason I have these goals, guys, is that I have certain levels of like revenue that I want to reach to make this a full-time job. I want to be able to do unwoke activism full time. And I just have certain, it's like any other business. You have certain revenue points you need to reach so that I don't have to go do consulting or other things. I want to be able to focus entirely on this. And you can help me out by becoming a paid supporter on my Substack for $5 a month, $50 a year. You can become a founding member if you like. Cooley became a paying member. I really do appreciate it, Cooley. Thank you for the support. If you don't want to do it on Substack, that's totally fine. You can head over to activelyunwoke.com/support. You can become a paying supporter in my locals community, which is just like the best community on all of locals, if I do say so myself. You can become a paying supporter on Patreon. You can make a one-time gift. You can find all those options over at activelyunwoke.com. And I'm also about to launch my Schools Exposed program. It's a little bit behind schedule. Okay, it's a crowdfunding campaign. Sometimes these things get behind schedule. And the reason it got behind schedule is, quite frankly, I got really sick and I couldn't record the things I needed to record for a couple of weeks. And you guys can probably even hear my voice is being hoarse right now, and that's because I'm recording so much shit. I'm having to edit and do all this stuff, but we might be a couple weeks behind schedule for launch of Schools Exposed, but the Schools Exposed program is coming. And this is an online program that I crowdfunded for to be able to put together an online program that will teach parents how to do exactly what we're doing today, how to find publicly available information that their schools, their school districts, their departments of education are putting on the internet in order to be able to find out exactly what is going on in the classroom. And it is all about finding public information. So you might say, why would people pay money for this? It's all public information. And you know what? Guess what? Some people won't need to. They won't. But the problem with this is there is an overwhelming amount of public information on these school websites. And if you don't know where to look or the right language to use, then it can be really difficult to find it. And so what I'm doing is I'm bringing a group of parents together who want to do this together, help and support each other. I am making videos to show them exactly where you need to look to at least get the search started. As we start working together as a community of people, we're going to be able to share information and add more videos and more information and update things when things change, because things will inevitably change. I want to create a community of 10,000 parents that are finding this information on their school websites, that are using it in their school districts, that are fighting back against the indoctrination that's going on in the schools. Because the most dangerous part of what is going on in the schools is what we're going to watch today, the teacher training, because anything that teachers are trained to do will end up in the classroom, and it's through policy and curriculum, and it's all the boring stuff. You need to rifle through a lot of documents. You need to read a lot of stuff, but that's what I'm going to train an army of parents to do. And that's what the Schools Exposed program is all about. The course room is going to be launching hopefully in the next couple of days or so. You can sign up for it by going to schoolsexposed.com in conjunction with the online training program that I'm putting together. I am also determined to use all of the information that we're going to collect during this training program in order to make the largest archive of school equity documents on the internet. I want to track what all of these schools are doing. I want to create a warehouse of documents, all of their equity plans, all of their trainings, all of their videos, all archived in one place. So schools cannot take it off the internet, and the information will be made available to the public. And then parents can decide for themselves what they want to do with it. I do not view it as my job to tell you what is acceptable for your kids. All I'm doing is showing you where the information is, showing you how to access it, teaching you what the language means, teaching you what all the position titles mean, and helping you to find out for yourself what is going on in your school and your school district, what your kids are really learning. And then you have to decide for yourself what you're comfortable with. And that's what we're doing here. Okay, I see some people are awesome. Scott is working on downloading those videos. Thank you, Scott, for that. Scott, if you could, so my email for activelyunwoke@gmail.com. So if you want to put those videos on like a Google Drive or like in a Dropbox or something like that and send them to activelyunwoke@gmail.com, that would be fantastic. I really appreciate you guys doing this, because we can watch the training and download the videos at the exact same time. Zipidus says, this is Kim Phillips Knopp's book she published, she pushed on us at a university, A Silent Crisis, Creating Safe and Supportive Schools for LGBTQ. Oh, isn't this great? We have an author training us today. Excellent, excellent, excellent. To know more about Kim, I would look up her Roots of Change stuff. It is all weird child-focused LGBT stuff, and she told us that living in straight schools is inequitable and homophobic. Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, guys, now that we've got that out of the way, please mount the like button for me. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And there's Kim right there. She's ready to go. Let me just get the sound on for this. And again, we are watching a training that was hosted by the Michigan Department of Education. The training is called Safe, Supportive, and Inclusive Classrooms, Practical Strategies for Affirming LGBTQ plus Students. This training is one of a dozen trainings that I now have access to, hosted by the Michigan Department of Education, all about queering the schools. And I have some intrepid volunteers working on downloading the files right now, because the Michigan Department of Education took away our ability to download their Google files. But there are ways around that. Sorry. Too bad, so sad, Michigan. All right, guys, let's see what's going on in the state of Michigan. Hang on, buffering, because I made it full screen. I don't need to look at a note from the Michigan Department of Education. Okay,
everyone.
Here we go.
Hope you're all doing well. We are so
I don't think there are captions,
with
guys.
us this afternoon. Let's see. My name is Kim Phillips-Knope.
Hi, Kim.
I am the project lead for the Michigan Department of Education's LGBTQ plus students project. I use she, her pronouns, and yeah, so happy you're here. As I said, I'm gonna let our other folks introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into our presentation. Owen, do you wanna go first?
I just turned up the volume a little bit, guys.
My name is Owen Bondano. I am the 2021 Michigan Teacher of the Year.
Oh my God. 2021 Michigan Teacher of the Year. Stand by. He, him pronouns, obviously. I'm just getting I'm getting a tweet ready. I'm composing a tweet about this. God knows that's the most important thing. Hang on. This is going to be one of those days, isn't it? You can always tell. Okay, let's keep going.
I teach 9th grade English at Oak Park High School, and I'm very excited to be with you today.
Thanks, Owen. Lori?
Hi, my name is Lori Beckhofer, and I use she, her, hers pronouns. I'm with the Michigan Department of Education. I'm the director on this LGBTQ students project. I want to thank you for being here today. There are many, many competing things I know on this day, and we really, really appreciate being here. I'm going to get a little sappy because it's our last webinar of the year and just say the work that you are doing and being part of this project is saving lives. And so thank you so much for all that you are doing
literally
to support LGBTQ students.
Literally saving lives.
And I wanted to say also that we have done like 28 webinars this year. We've reached it's a crazy number of people that we've reached. And we've reached
almost 2,000. It's like 1,700.
Yeah. So
almost
we're making a difference, and it's 1 person at a time. So thank you.
They've reached almost 2,000 teachers in Michigan with these webinars.
Thanks, Lori. Katie?
I am Katie. I use she, her, hers pronouns. I am the project assistant on this LGBTQ initiatives, and thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Katie. So I'm giving people fair warning that we are recording. I'm supposed to make sure that everybody knows we are recording. Our goal is just to make this video, make this training available. We have so many people who have been trying to get into our webinars that we gave up on trying to keep it intimate. And now we just let everybody in. And we're also recording so that we can share it. So yeah, just so you know. And let me share my screen here. All right. So this is where you are. We are very excited to be talking about classroom strategies today. We've covered lots of different approaches to making sure that our LGBTQ plus students and families are supported. Today we're talking about classroom strategies. We start all of our trainings with a land acknowledgement. So I just want to take a moment to respectfully acknowledge the Menominee, Fox, Anishinaabe, Peoria, Chippewa, or
we should be playing bingo.
Sioux, Mississauga, Odawa, Miami, Potawatomi, and other Native peoples who've stewarded the unceded land upon which we are standing and have been throughout the generations. They have been throughout the generations, not us. Yeah, and so welcome. Please do whatever you need to make sure that you can be present. Obviously, it's the end of the school day. There's a lot going on. I imagine folks are tired, although it's Monday. So whatever you need to do to be able to be present, we're happy to have you. Just so that you know, this
Here,
is
I'll get
going
the
to be
bingo card.
interactive, so please be prepared to participate.
I love it when they do interaction.
We are offering sketches and social work CEs The code, if you're a Sketch person, the code for this webinar will be shared at the very end in the PowerPoint. And
There's your
please make
bingo
sure that
card.
you have the code. You need to fill out the form itself. You can't just send your information to our contact person. You have to fill out the form and include the PIC number, your PIC number, and the code to this workshop. And then afterwards, we'll be sending you an email that's got the PowerPoint, links to the video.
They're offering continuing education credits for this course. So teachers and like, I don't know exactly what the rules are in Michigan, but like teachers and social workers and those sorts of things, what they have to do is do ongoing professional development, which means they have to watch trainings like this, and they have to get like continuing education credit in order to maintain their licensure. I just want it to be noted that this program is offering continuing education credit.
Videos we'll be sharing a two-page resource list. So just so that you know, that's forthcoming. This is just a little bit about the project. We offer these online trainings. This year, we'll be moving into an in-person setting again here at some point. And we also do technical assistance and drop-in support. That has been on the first Thursday of every month, and we share more about that towards the end. We also work with the State Board of Education when they created the statement and guidance on safe and supportive learning environments for LGBTQ students. And we have this wonderful resource guide that we put together and have available for folks. Owen, you introduced yourself a little bit. Do you want to say anything more?
I will just add to my introduction that, like I said, I'm the Michigan Teacher of the Year. I am also transgender and bisexual, and I represent those communities everywhere I go. And I forgot to mention that I use he, they pronouns.
Thanks, Owen. All right. So you've had a chance to hear from us. We've done our introductions. If folks want to just take a moment. Oh, Owen, I'm totally taking over.
I was just going to let you. It's okay. That's fine. But yeah, we'd love to hear a little bit from you and who you are. So if you would take a moment in the chat, introduce yourselves, let us know who you are. If you feel comfortable sharing your pronouns, please do so and add them to your Zoom name. What is your role wherever it is that you are coming from? And then either in the chat with a number or using the annotation tool, on a scale of a llama, how are you feeling today? It's one of my favorite questions to ask.
Oh, goodness. All right, we'll just give you a moment to look at the llama scale.
How are
so
you
that you have
feeling
chance
on a
to
scale
really,
of llama?
make sure you capture exactly how you're feeling.
I think
feel
I
a
may
little
be
bit like
feeling a
4
4
maybe
today. A 4. Yeah.
I feel like I'm between 4 and 7.
Yeah,
But a 4 and 7.
I get that. I might be, earlier I was a 1 or a 5. All right, thank you all very much. We'll move to the next bit here. So we do have some group agreements that we just want to set forth here as we get started. The first is wherever you're at is okay. So we don't have any set of expectations that folks come to this work with any certain values or beliefs.
Thank you,
or
Scott.
level
I
of
really
experience.
appreciate it.
Our job is to meet you where you're at and to provide you with the resources and support that you need to best serve your students and their families. No one knows everything, but together we sure know a lot. This is really just an opportunity for you all to bring your own experiences into this.
Oh, hang on. I want to show a really nice chat from Damien. Damien, I appreciate this. Thanks for exposing these sickos. I red pilled 2 of my friends from your content on your channel alone. It really woke them up. I can't thank you enough. Well, thank you, Damien, and thank you for sharing my content. Guys, one of the best things that you can do to help me out is to share my content with your friends, with your network. Make sure they know what's going on. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Damien, and hi to Damien's 2 friends. Thank you guys for listening. I know this stuff isn't always easy to listen to, but I really am grateful that it's made an impact.
We want to learn from you in addition to being able to share our own learnings. Make room for discomfort. There may be some things that we talk about that are bring up a little bit of discomfort, make you feel a little uncomfortable. Just remember that discomfort is not a bad thing. That it's really that's where the learning edge is. So if we're in that place of feeling uncomfortable, that we're probably in a good place and have a good opportunity to grow. Take responsibility for your own learning. This is an invitation to ask us questions. I think in a Zoom setting, it's often feels intimidating or wrong to interrupt, and we just want to invite folks to please do that. We would like to be interrupted so that your questions get answered. You can take yourself off of mute and do it that way. You can also add things into the chat, and we'll try to monitor that as well. And then delay distractions, again, as best you can. We just want you to be able to be present so that you can get the most out of the training. Some things to reflect on. Just remember that our own identities, our experiences, the privileges and biases that we have, all of these things shape our perceptions and actions and sort of how we move through the world. And we just want to invite folks to just have an awareness of that as we're moving through our time together here. Take note of resistance. There may be places in the training where you notice yourself actively sort of pushing back on what you hear. And we just want to invite folks at that point to, to just notice that, maybe approach it with a sense of wonder and curiosity about kind of what that's about without judgment, but just kind of wanting to learn more about that. Be conscious of intent versus impact. No matter our intentions, we can still cause harm. And so we want to make sure that we're taking responsibility.
Oh, she's a true believer.
And remember,
this one is going to be good, guys.
Dismantle systems of oppression here, but not each other. So if we are on the receiving end of harm, we would just invite folks to call people in as opposed to call people out. And if we're on the receiving end of that, want to remind people to try to receive that as the gift that it is, and that remember that being called in is an act of trust, and it's an act of respect. And it's about sort of maintaining being in relationship with people. And then the last thing, there's a lot going on in the world right now. Just want to take care of each other, do what we can to praise and lift people up and celebrate and love on each other as best we can today. Are there any questions or anything that we want to add to our list of group agreements? All right, then we will keep going. And if we need to revisit these, we can do that anytime. Yeah, Owen?
We had a great question come up in the chat. Someone asked, what is calling people in?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. So calling people in, let's see. So I'll start by the opposite. Calling people out is sort of a way of sort of naming that somebody has made a mistake and kind of shaming them around the mistake that they've made. And it has a tendency to disconnect people from each other, kind of push each other away. Calling people in is a way of saying, I've been harmed by something that you said, but I recognize your humanity, and I'm asking you to recognize mine as well. And I have been hurt by this, and that we want to sort of maintain.
Calling people in is a nice way to say, you hurt my fragile feelings with your language, and now you need to adjust your language so that my fragile feelings don't get hurt. That's all it is.
Maintain relationships. So we're inviting somebody to stay in connection with us as we work through and heal from any harm that's been done. Owen, do you want to add anything to that?
The other big difference that I was just going to bring up was that calling out often happens in public versus calling in, which usually happens in private conversation. In a space like this, that distinction may be less of a distinction, but in general, that is one of the two things that make them different.
Great. Thank you very much. Great question. Thank you. All right.
So of course, you can't do a PD without having your objectives on the board, right? So here are today's objectives. We're going to, at the end of this workshop, you'll be able to identify experiences LGBTQ+ students are having in classrooms that negatively impact their school experience. We're going to hear directly from some students in their own voice. You'll be able to state the impact classroom interactions with educators, peers, and the curriculum can have on the educational experiences of LGBTQ+ students. And you're going to be able to list best practice strategies school personnel can take to adapt to policies and their implementation to support LGBTQ+ student success.
All right, so this is how we're going to get there. These are our this is our agenda for our time here. We're starting with the welcome and introductions, kind of setting the stage. We're going to jump next into understanding the classroom experience. So really trying to understand what's the daily lived experience of our students in the classrooms, as well as what's the impact. So how are they being impacted by their experiences? Then we're going to focus in on strategies. What can we do? How can we make this experience for our LGBTQ plus students as positive and inclusive as it can be? Then we'll bring some closure and we'll all be off. So we have started the entire year with this slide, and just it's always a reminder for us that while we're all living through a pandemic, we're all having experienced racial injustice and a political atmosphere that's been, particularly challenging over the course of the year. We also have not all been experiencing those things in the same way, and that for our LGBTQ plus students, that they may be having been sheltering in place. They may have been in homes that have not been supportive, and places where they've been harmed or been forced to sort of hide aspects of who they are. And as my English major.
This person is literally saying that LGBTQ plus students were unsafe in their own home during the pandemic because they may have had to hide who they really were from their families. Because if they told their families who they really were, then they would be unsafe in their own home. And do you know where the only safe space for LGBTQ plus students is? In schools with the teachers that will take care of them and not tell their parents what's going on.
Coming out, can you tell? And especially for our Black and Brown LGBTQ plus students, that we really want to keep in mind that the experiences of homophobia and transphobia and racism have a compounding impact, and that as we're working with our students, we want to try to see them as their whole self and not as sort of individual identities that they might have. All right, so we'll start kind of getting into things with just hearing directly from some young people about kind of what their daily lived experience is. So I'm going to give you fair warning that the videos vary significantly in their volume, so you might want to be prepared to adjust your volume. Some are very quiet, some are much louder. So
I always love it when taxpayer-funded training comes via TikTok video. You really know to take it seriously when you're being shown videos from TikTok as a part of a state-funded and sponsored training.
yeah, just you've been warned, and here we go.
It's almost like that's the whole point.
So you're a part of the LGBTABCDEFG plus community? Yeah. You do realize that's sick, right? I know, right? So sick. No, like it's a sickness. You have a sickness? No, I'm saying it's unnatural. Oh no, I've never had work done. But you know, I might. No, I'm saying like as a woman you should be with a man. Like a bodyguard? No, I'm saying like you should be with a man for a partner. Why do I need a partner? Are we doing a project? Oh, well, bye.
How is this educational at all?
So I dated a girl for about a year, and in the beginning of our relationship, I decided to start going by Mo because I was more comfortable with that. And she hated this. She would tell me all the time how stupid it sounded, how it didn't make sense, and she refused to call me Mo, even though everybody else in my life at that point did. And this was supposed to be the person who loved me wholeheartedly. Anyways, the girl I'm with now, I started dating in the middle of figuring out my gender identity stuff. And she had made a playlist for me called To the Most Beautiful Girl I Have Ever Met. Since then, I've openly come out as non-binary, and I went back to go listen to the playlist, and I noticed that she changed the name to The Most Beautiful Person I've Ever Met, and she didn't even tell me. And I cried because I have never had that much validation or support passively from a partner before. I never realized how much that would mean to me. Be with the people who love you for you, because that makes all the difference in the world.
Oh my God. This is an actual teacher training. This is not real life. TikTok is not real life. Scott says, holy shit, I found the person who put the warning about sharing the video's Reddit account, and they are likely working for... Who are they working for, Scott? Don't leave me hanging. What is the rest of this sentence? Who are they working for? I'm like on the edge of my seat waiting for Scott to finish this sentence. Oh, they're likely working for Moshe. Okay. Thank you, Scott. Michigan, Oregon, adolescent
Just a
sexual
few
health.
more videos.
Oh, good, more.
Love yourself today, 'cause baby, you were born this way.
Normalize not coming out to everyone in your life. I can speak to coming out, and it's a very dehumanizing experience. I wouldn't do it again if I had to, but someone not coming out doesn't make them any less gay, lesbian, pansexual, or however they choose to identify. As someone who does choose to come out, you're just as valid. Like, at the end of the day, straight people don't come out, so we shouldn't be expected to either. We should just live our lives without kind of any explanation. Like, you don't owe anyone an explanation as to why your sexuality is what it is, or why you love who you love. Like, like, coming out is just very ostracizing, and I would not do it again. So if you ever feel like you're pressured to, just no, you don't have to do it. But if you do, you're most welcome to.
So do other people with same gender parents get asked all the time, like, oh, how was growing up with that? Because I do, like, all the time. I was raised by lesbians. And I don't really know what people expect my answer to be. Do they expect me to be like, oh my God, I hate my moms. They raised me to be such a wonderful, normal, good person in society. The only bad thing that I've ever experienced in having two moms is how people treat me. They treat me like a specimen. In elementary school, people would make up rumors that I'd call people gay slurs, and I didn't even know what they were. I had to ask my mom. My first ever crush that I asked out didn't want to date me because I had two moms. And we've lost so many family members along the way who just didn't accept us and didn't want us to be their family. So in conclusion, the problem with having gay moms isn't them being parents. It's about how society accepts them, because they don't.
All right. Don't worry, we're gonna have a chance to process all of this, but just kinda
Everyone take a few
wanting
deep
to
breaths.
ground us in the, like I
Process
said,
the
in the
TikTok.
voices of young people talking about their lived experiences. So we hear from them with their actual voices. We also have some data that they've shared with us through the Michigan Youth Risk Behavior Survey about what Michigan specific LGBT public high school students are experiencing, and this is what we know. So compared to their heterosexual and cisgender peers, LGBT students are almost 3 times as likely to have been threatened or injured with a weapon at school. They're about twice as likely to have been bullied at school or bullied online. You can imagine if this is kind of what you're going through, that, I don't know, you probably don't want to spend 8 hours a day at school. So we also see that our LGBT students are more likely to skip school because they felt safe. And if we're not in school, it's a lot harder to keep our grades up. And so we do see grades impacted as well. And I just want to mention that this sort of seems like it's a moment in time, but I just want us to remember and put this in the context of a kid's lifespan, in that if somebody is having this experience in high school and they have low grades, it impacts where they go to school afterwards.
Wait, hang on. Breaking news. Marianne Williamson confirms she will primary Biden in 2024. Marianne! I love Marianne Williamson. I'm glad she's running again. This is going to be great. Marianne Williamson versus Joe Biden. The clown car has begun, people. All right. Focus.
If they choose to go to school at all, some students choose not to go on to additional education because of their high school experiences. And all of that has an impact, not just on their high school experience, but on their life trajectory, about their lifelong income, their career options, all kinds of things. And so just really wanting to remember that there's a long-term impact to everything that we're talking about here. Unfortunately, we also see that our LGBT students report that they're hearing adults and school personnel use homophobic comments. So 1 in 6 LGBT students have heard school staff make homophobic comments.
Like
1 in 3
what?
have heard school staff make negative comments about a person's gender expression. And you can imagine, again, that if this is what you're experiencing, that you might not feel connected at school. And we know that school connectedness can be linked to academic success as well. And unfortunately, we also know that our LGBT students have, and all adolescents really, when they're facing difficulty, they might not have coping mechanisms that are the healthiest. And so we do see increased rates of drug and alcohol use, of engaging in self-harm. We know too, there's that our LGBT students are more likely to be pushed out or kicked out of their homes due specifically to family rejection. And unfortunately, we also see that almost a quarter of Michigan LGBT high school students had attempted suicide in the last 12 months. That's about more than 4.5 times higher than for their non-LGBT peers.
And it's important to remember too that the idea by Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw of intersectionality, that a student that is experiencing oppression on more than one axis, that those effects can compound, and that student can experience all kinds of risk factors that they wouldn't have experienced just from belonging to one of these groups. And so in particular, our Black and Brown LGBTQ plus students are experiencing a level of these kinds of injustices that really impacts their lives and their livelihood and their mental health.
I just want to note that they are providing absolutely no data or evidence to support the claims they're making, even though they probably have the data, because most school districts do have this data. There's a reason when we were investigating the Burlington, Vermont school districts, what we found is that what they would say in trainings like this blatantly contradicted the data that they had. So they had data that said that Black and Brown students were not getting suspended or being disciplined at a disproportional rate to white students. It literally was in their own reports. And then they were doing presentations like this saying, Black and Brown students are disproportionately impacted by X, Y, B, and Z, even though what they were saying contradicted their own effing reports that they literally wrote. And so anytime they're not giving you data, there is a reason they're not giving you data.
And of course, another intersection here is our transgender
Glisten. Their
students.
fucking
So
source
this
is
some
Glisten.
Data from
Glisten.
real recent in some cases. We know that compared to their cisgender peers, transgender students are more likely to miss school, are more likely to have slept away from home. We know that many of our homeless youth, a disproportionate amount, are LGBTQ plus and specifically transgender, and more likely to have attempted suicide in the last 12 months. And this leads to, or this sometimes comes from harmful school practices, like 1 in 4 being prevented from using their chosen name or pronoun, 1 in 3 being prevented from using the bathroom aligned with their gender identity, and nearly 1 in 5 prevented from wearing the clothing that they would prefer to wear based on their gender. And these can all seem like such small factors, a name, an article of clothing, a bathroom usage, but these become part of that undercurrent radiation of a child's life that dictates whether or not they're in a good mental place or not. I did want to mention though on that side real quick, I almost forgot, that we do want to highlight the fact that these numbers are getting better. These numbers are down over half from 2 years ago and 60% from 2 years ago. So the picture may seem heartbreaking, and it is in many ways, but it is improving.
Thanks, Owen.
Of course. In the next set of videos, these ones are really all about pronoun usage and the impact that proper pronoun
More
usage has.
effing TikTok.
I think in the next set is.
This is it. Yeah.
Oh, this set? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I got confused for a minute. My bad.
No, it's all good. I know there are a lot of videos.
Teacher
All
of the
Here
year.
we go.
Hello, I'm Jack. I am a trans guy and I work at Starbucks. And I wanted to tell you a little story of something that happened today, just so you understand. This is for LGBT allies, etc., and just educational in general, I guess. So there was a guy that came through the drive-through and he called me ma'am. And I figured it was such a small encounter. I didn't really have the time to sit there and correct him because a lot of times it takes a lot of explaining. And
Also,
I
he's a
didn't say anything.
customer.
I turned and I have these buttons on my apron, and one of them said he, him. And the guy saw it and immediately he started apologizing to me and he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I should have noticed. I should have asked. Like I was, that was ridiculous of me. I'm so sorry I misgendered you. And I looked at him and I was like, hey, from the trans community, the fact that you noticed it, you acknowledged it, and you corrected yourself, and you didn't make it a big deal, and you wanted to express like that, I said, that's the most we can ask for. 90% of the time, people are obnoxious about it. People question it, or people don't do what you do.
Oh my God, did you call me baby? Maybe. Is that okay? Yeah, it's cool. I like that. Cool.
What the hell was that?
So the other day I was at work and I was working the register and bagging up groceries and all that. And this guy comes up and he's like,
oh, sorry.
Like a 70, 80-year-old white man, American flag mask, camo hat. And he's just staring at me the whole time that I'm bagging stuff up. And he's looking for my name tag to my face and then like kind of around me. And I just looked at him and then he looked at me and he goes, Declan. And I said, yes. And he said, that's a boy's name. And I said, yep. And then he looks back at me and then he looks down at my name tag and then up at me again and goes, good for you. This is the passive allyship we need, people. If you see a LGBTQIA person in the wild, just say good for you and continue moving on with your life. Also, what is this? Have a great day.
Some of you are transphobic, and I feel like maybe you don't know. If
What the hell? Oh my God.
Transphobic. If you're disgusted by them because you're trans and you are transphobic. And if you call them the wrong pronouns, then you are transphobic. And if you don't exhibit trans friends, then you are transphobic.
I'm gonna say, like, that kid legitimately has a beautiful voice. And it could be being put to such better use than a song about being transphobic if you don't think like them. Oh my God.
All right.
Beautiful voice.
So we are going to take a moment. We're going to give you a chance. It's a lot of information to process and to take in. So we want to give you some time in small groups just to talk for just for a few minutes about kind of what stands out to you from the videos and the data, like what you've heard so far about the
I
experiences.
hope we get to
of
see the small group
LGBTQ+
discussions. That would be
students,
great.
And how might this information be
Please
useful
show
or
us the
relevant to you as a
discussions.
classroom teacher? All right, and we will post those in the chat. In theory, I'm going to stop sharing here so that we can break you into groups. And all right, so we're going to break you into groups. You'll have about like 6 minutes or so, 7 minutes to talk in your groups, and we'll give you like a 1-minute warning before we call you back. All right. Any questions before we break? All right, if you need anything, invite us into your room and we'll help you out.
Please bring us into the room.
So I know that we had a lot of groups and there's a lot of people in this call right now. So obviously we won't be able to hear from everybody. But
we don't get to
is
hear
there
the discussion.
anything
God
that
damn
was
it.
said in anyone's group that you really feel the rest of us would benefit from having it lifted up to the whole group? Anything that moved you or impacted you or you think would be useful?
We would just invite you to take yourself off of mute and just hop right in.
Actually, we had 2 people in our 4-person group that work at the elementary level that have had at least 2 kids come out. And I find that, given the school I work in at the elementary level, amazing and hopeful. And I want to be in their schools and I want to know how they made that happen, because I'm tired of it being pushed off to the high school level. I've really had enough. So glad to hear that it's working for some people. Super happy about that.
That's awesome.
A lot of it has begun with the counseling department, at the elementary level, and then, continuing into the middle school level, but also administration. We've done a lot in our school to, just raise that awareness, but mostly just have the conversation. And we've started every single conversation with, we really don't know all of the answers, but we're willing to hear everything that needs to be talked about, and then we can look for them together. So that's really worked well at our school for both elementary and middle school.
That's really great. And that's a sign of how safe your kids feel, that they feel safe enough to come out, especially at that age. I'm sorry, Veronica, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go right ahead.
Sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So I work at the middle school level, and one thing that I've really realized is people, like a lot of my students who do come out or are part of the community, are very confident in that, and confident in their identity at the middle school level, which is phenomenal to like witness. But then at the same time, their cisgender peers or their peers are not as confident, and they are making slurs, and they are kind of providing that unsafe environment. So just like as educators and as counselors,
This middle school teacher in Michigan is saying that all LGBTQ plus students in her middle school are totally confident with their identities and are totally fine with coming out, and they're just being put down and insulted and hearing slurs from their cisgender peers. That's pretty insulting to a lot of people, a lot of students in whatever middle school this woman is teaching in.
counselors, it's important to take that as a learning opportunity and a teaching opportunity to the students who are making those slurs or whatever, because I feel like as a teacher, when I do address the situation and when I do validate the student who is a part of the community, like they feel validated not only by me, but then some of the other peers that they have kind of open their eyes of, oh my gosh, I just said a homophobic comment, or I did say a transphobic comment. And it kind of shines the light on, okay, they're still trying to figure out how to properly communicate with people and not try to offend anyone, if that makes sense.
That should be our
Thank you
goal.
for sharing that.
Never offending anyone.
Anyone else have anything they want to lift up from their
Middle
group or from your
school
thinking
teacher.
or anything like that?
I really think that in order for, more acceptance and more education to occur, that curriculum, people who are in charge of curriculum are going to need, like immediately, to start, having books that, provide, some kind of a place where, people can see themselves reflected back, and not just choosing books because, oh, that's what we've always done, but choosing books that are going to represent everybody and have them, like right now we're doing social issues, and one of the areas that we've chosen is LGBTQ equality. And I can just see the students as they walk into my room that have come out, like just kind of deep breathe and sigh, like finally I know I can come in here and I have a voice, and I also can see myself in what I'm studying.
This teacher literally just told us that they are teaching LGBTQ plus activism to students as part of the curriculum, and is encouraging that more books be made available in order to further this. And listen, I don't think there's anything wrong with including books in the curriculum where you have a variety of different characters with a variety of different life experiences. That's fine. Like there should be I'm sorry, this might piss some people off. There probably should be gay characters and trans characters in books because like that's like a thing that happens in life. But there should be they shouldn't just be there because they're gay or trans. They should be there because they're part of the story. But I promise you what this person is doing is not talking about just having a character in a story who happens to be gay. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about teaching activism.
I agree.
All right. You ready?
Ready.
All right, let's do it. So I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen here.
So I do encourage you to take a moment here, just a minute maybe, to write down a key learning that you want to remember from the discussion. Don't worry about putting it in the chat or anywhere where it's going to be shared. Wherever you're taking notes or in your phone or something like that, this is just for you. Just to pause for a moment and process whatever it is that you think has been the most important thing so far or something you don't want to forget. So just take a moment real quick to do that wherever you're taking notes today. And I encourage the people who are connecting with each other in the chat to continue doing that for sure.
So we've done a lot of sitting all day, maybe. So again, this is just an invitation to stretch, to stand up, to move a little bit, whatever you need to, so that you can sort of be in your body and present here with us for the last second half of our time here together. All right.
God, more
So we
goddamn
have,
TikTok. This is an entire
we just
presentation built
wanna,
on
share
TikTok.
a little bit more, a few more videos that sort of get at different experiences and ways that you can show support to your LGBTQ plus students. And Owen, I think that you often talk about dead name.
One of these videos mentions the term dead name, which if you're not familiar, someone's dead name is the name that they used before their transition, and it's dead to them now, hence the name. So I just wanted to define it in case it confused anybody when it came up in the video.
Thank you. All right, here we go.
So tell me, how's it feel? Tell me, how's it feel? Sitting up there, feeling so high, but you're far away to hold me. You know I'm the one who put
It's a
you
giant
on.
trans flag.
Okay, well, I did it. I taught the first day back after winter break. I did it. Because of COVID, my classes restarted today. So I started with brand new students. And as per usual, on the first day, I asked students for their name, their preferred name, and their pronouns. We don't say preferred pronouns anymore. So I asked for their pronouns. And I'm just amazed at how many teachers don't do this. We're still not asking for pronouns. It's not that hard, teachers. It's not that hard. Asking for student pronouns is not that hard to do. And asking where it's safe for us to use them is so simple. Can I use this?
What does her shirt say? White silence equals, I'm pretty sure it said white silence equals it doesn't look like violence. I don't know what the last word on her shirt is. So anytime you're seeing a shirt like this, it's definitely a true believer. I want to know what that last word is though.
This in our class? Can I use this outside of our class? And can I use this at home?
I don't think
I'm
it's
calling to talk
violence.
to your parents or emailing your parents. I had 2 students tell me that they'd never been asked their pronouns before. One student was in tears because it was the first time they got to use their pronouns in their life.
It doesn't say violence, guys. Okay, that was dramatic.
Disobey me, then baby, it's all.
It does probably say
Right,
white
so
violence.
in addition to hearing from some different folks about kind of ways, strategies that we can show support, we also wanted to share this video, which focuses on an elementary setting.
Look at the
This is Rick
door.
Joseph. He was
Look at the door
Michigan's
behind
Teacher of
him.
the Year in 2015. Sorry. 2015, 2016. I guess it's that school year.
Okay, so some people are guessing in the chat it might say white silence equals white consent. Maybe, I don't know. It could have said it said white consent on Google. All right, we'll go with that then. White silence equals white consent. Black Lives Matter shirt. Okay, cool. We figured it out. Well done, guys.
Yeah, he's an elementary school teacher and talks a little bit about what he does in his classroom.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rick Joseph, and I am a 5th and 6th grade teacher at Covington School in suburban Detroit, Birmingham Public Schools, and I'm outside my classroom here. One of the first things that I do to create a safe and inclusive space is to have signage outside my door. So you can see stickers for the rainbow flag and the expanded rainbow flag with transgender acknowledgement and BIPOC folks, as well as the transgender and rainbow flag.
Oh my God, that's a whole wall of flair.
Message to people walking by that this is a safe space. When you go in my classroom, the first thing you do is you actually walk over my welcome mat that says everyone is welcome here, which reminds people that this is a place where not only you can feel safe, but you can come and talk to me if you have any questions or concerns regarding any issue related to the LGBTQ plus community. When you come into my classroom library, also, what you see is this book bin here, which is a bin that features stories of characters who are LGBTQ+.
The gay
mostly fictionals,
BCs.
But there are, of course, a vast array of books at every level. I teach 5th and 6th grade, so these books are, many of them are now considered classics, like My Two Uncles. This book is extraordinary. This Day in June, which talks about the history of the gay pride movement, and Tango Makes Three. I Am Jazz is a book I read usually on the first day of school, which creates a safe and inclusive community right off the bat. And there's a real power of using read alouds in the classroom for helping to make students aware of the fact that these are issues that we can talk about whenever and wherever, but also it's very safe and anonymous. Furthermore, students can read these books on their own independently, and they can, of course, feel free to explore any topics that they wish. So the use of classroom libraries and the use of signage are just two elements of creating a safe and inclusive space for everyone. And of course, what works for people who are LGBTQ plus works for everybody in making sure that all people, all students and adults feel safe and welcome.
God, that guy's creepy. I'm sorry. He just is.
So we've heard from adults. Now we want to hear from young people. So this is these are students from Detroit Public Schools Community District talking about their advice or their sort of suggestions to educators about ways.
Oh, really? This is on YouTube? Watch on YouTube. Student Voices short clip. Huh. I wonder if anyone can find that.
Ways that we can be supportive.
Like when you see them as like if they're gay or not, and like if they transgender, you should ask them like, even if they're transgender, you still can ask them like, do you want me to call you a her or him? I'm not a transgender. I'm just a boy that likes to look nice with the wigs and things like that.
I just would want them just to start, getting to know the people like before you start working, so they can be prepared for this type of stuff. Because, as this decade starts to like going, like as the years starting to pass by, there's going to be more people like that, more trans people and cisgender people, and they're just gonna have to come to terms with that.
Just be more supportive. And actually, I know they be like, no bullying, I got that rule, but it's like, it really don't apply because they don't do anything about it. Just stand up for, all rights.
They need to stop enforcing their beliefs or their religions or political views onto students.
Just don't do anything offensive because they can take it the wrong way. Like, say for instance, you're talking about something about the school. Like, for instance, I have a teacher, I'm not gonna say any names, and he used to always talk about like, oh, why is the school funding a gay community when they could be funding the school itself, giving us more books and stuff.
One of my favorite teachers has an inclusion club at our school. And she lets us come in there every Friday during our lunch, and we'll sit there and talk. And I come to her about a lot of my issues, because she's accepting about it. She talks to us. She lets us express how we are, and she's okay with it.
They should stop. Well, I'm not going to say feel how they want to feel because it's your emotions. You can feel whatever you want to. I just say they should stop, like, saying what's on the top of their mind, actually think about it.
Not saying that they shouldn't ask the students like what their preferred pronouns are, or if something is messing like their gender wise, they shouldn't put it out in front of the whole entire class. Like some teachers, some like a incident, like a teacher's called a student her and she, like one of those pronouns, and the student was like, "That's not what I classify as." And it's like you could pull that student aside in the hallway and talk to them about it instead of having that conversation in front of the entire class. Cause like, how do you expect them to feel? That's kind of making them feel like, oh my goodness, all these people are watching me. She's talking to me about this, and then she could be disrespectful about it. So I just think that if you do have a situation where you run into gender or pronouns, talk to that student individually.
Right. There's some great stuff happening in the chat over there. Just want to make sure that folks are following that, and I'm going to hand it off to Owen.
Yeah, so when we talk about ways that we can be more inclusive in our classrooms, I first want to take a moment to sort of remind us that all of this is a cycle of continuous improvement. There is no point at which you know everything about being a co-conspirator or an ally. I certainly have not reached that point because it's not possible to reach it. And so we are constantly improving, and no matter where you are on your journey of learning, there's more for you to learn, and you're in a good place to start in that motion. So this cycle is that we learn new information, right? We hopefully today what we've done has already resulted in you learning some new information, and then you're going to take that information and evaluate your practices based on it. Where are there places where that new information doesn't line up with the existing practices in your classroom or in your building, or et cetera? And then you act on that evaluation. In my opinion, I like to break acting into sort of 3 categories, which I'm going to go over here in just a minute: advocating, protecting, and disrupting. But once you have acted, then you have to gather some data, reflect on what worked and what didn't work, which takes you right back into the learning portion of the cycle. So, like I said, I wanted to break ACT into 3 different parts. And that's really what I want to talk about this afternoon a little bit, is what those 3 parts are and how we do them. So the first one was to advocate for your students. We know we have a lot of data now. GLSEN does a survey every other year on what students are experiencing in their schools. And with over 20 years of data, we know that there are 4 sort of pillars that every
I
school
could count on
needs in
you.
order to fully support their LGBTQ plus students and to make sure they feel supported. So those 4 pillars are here on this image. They are a comprehensive anti-bullying and anti-discrimination policy, teachers, staff members, educators, etc., who are supportive of our LGBTQ plus students, gender and sexuality alliances, GSAs, previously known as gay straight alliances, and an inclusive curriculum, which we heard about a little bit already, and we're going to talk a little bit more about. When it comes to these 4 pillars, they really are like the 4 legs of a table, in my opinion, where if you take one away, the table may not fall down or anything, but it definitely is getting wobbly. So the 4 of them really do interlock with each other, and they are all necessary for the strongest sense of support for our students. And 2 of those in particular, I think, go with the idea of advocating, and that is our curriculum and the GSAs, or gender sexuality alliances. So when it comes to our curriculum, we're always thinking about what our students need in our classroom. And if you're not familiar, Radine Sims Bishop had the idea of mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors in our curriculum. That is, that our curriculum should provide every single student with a mirror to see themselves and their experiences reflected back, a window into experiences that are different from the ones that they've encountered, and sliding glass doors, or a way to enter into the world that is wider than themselves and their experiences. And this is true as well for our LGBTQ plus students. So this could mean finding resources for your students. I know that there's lots of resources in our 2-page resource on curriculum, but to tell sort of a story about it, When I was in high school, I had a teacher who really loved Walt Whitman. We spent way too much time in this guy's class on Walt Whitman. And I don't blame him. Walt Whitman is great and all, but like it was still a long time on Walt Whitman. And then I got to college, and as a future English teacher, of course, I had to take a lot of literature classes. And I had a course where one of the writers we were studying was Walt Whitman. And I was like, here we go, great, again. And that professor, one of the first things that they brought up was a poem that Walt Whitman had written that was specifically to a same gender lover. And I realized that I had studied Walt Whitman so extensively and so deeply in that one English class in high school, but no one had ever mentioned the fact that he was queer. It felt like I had been deliberately cut off from a history and a culture and a community that was mine. I'm sure that teacher didn't do it on purpose. He probably just wasn't thinking about it. Or maybe he was afraid of the wrong parent complaining or something like that.
Maybe he was thinking about focusing on the literature rather than who the author of the literature was sleeping with. Maybe he thought that the point of high school English class was to focus on literature, not sex, not affirming, who you are as a person. Maybe he thought the point was to teach you the literature.
But it was still done, and it felt very isolating to have realized that it was done. But at the same time, it was a wonderful moment because it was like I could see in this moment the way that LGBTQ people have always been here and have always contributed to the human experience for as long as there's been a human experience. And that moment of connection does a lot to tear down the feelings of isolation that a lot of LGBTQ plus students experience. So when you mention that the people that you're already teaching about happen to be LGBTQ, when you have books in your classroom library, if you're the kind of person with a classroom library, that are representative of those experiences, if the materials that you use happen to mention, someone mentioned in the chat earlier, I'm sorry, I don't remember who did, but they mentioned using Duolingo in their language classroom, and that there was a story on the Duolingo that just happened to have 2 moms in it. That's really such a normalizing and wonderful thing for a student to see. It doesn't have to be the main focus of what you're talking about or anything like that, but just the existence can be so validating for an LGBTQ plus student. And as far as GSA's, gender and sexuality alliances, there's a lot of research, of course, that shows that students in a GSA feel more supportive. They have a place where they can be authentic, and how important that is for our students and lessening that sense of isolation. But there's also research that the GSA doesn't just help our LGBTQ plus kids, it helps all students in the school. They overall have less biases and feel more like their school is a place where everyone is welcome. So they benefit the entire school, not just any one particular population. But I start with advocate because I think that's the first thing. That's the first thing that is our job, is to advocate for our students' place in the classroom and in the school. But after advocating,
So okay, I'm still thinking about this, Mary. I'm sorry. Side note. So for those of you who maybe just joined, breaking news: Marianne Williamson is primarying Joe Biden for president. Wouldn't it be hilarious if the Democratic primary legitimately came down to Marianne Williamson or Joe Biden, and more people and Marianne Williamson actually won just because she's not Joe Biden? And then this is like one of the most hilarious possible outcomes of 2024. What a gift we've all been given already.
my next step is to protect our students. That's the next thing that I separate.
All right, back
acting
to
into:
business. Sorry.
advocate and then protect. And I look at protecting as sort of there being like 2 levels of us protecting our kids. And the first one is like sort of that high level policy level thing. That's having those inclusive anti-discrimination policies, anti-bullying policies, etc. And if you're in a place to do so, taking a look at what your district's policies are and where they can be more inclusive is a great step to take. And MDE has some great sample policies that you could sort of compare to the ones that exist in your building or district. And the other level of protecting is the really one-on-one conversations, what happens in your specific classroom or other space that you have direct control over. And this is how we act every day, which is what communicates really to our LGBTQ students that More than a sticker on the door, more than saying the words "you are safe," the actions that we take every day is what prove to those students that we keep them safe. So the graphic that you see on the screen is one that summarizes
Scott, you are a king. Thank you so much.
the 5 steps of what to do when you witness an anti-LGBTQ behavior from GLSEN. These 5 steps, I think, can also be applied to anything that happens in your space that makes your space less safe. So if someone makes a racist comment, a sexist comment, etc., these 5 steps are a great way to address it. So the first step is to address it immediately. You know, sometimes our teacher instinct tell us that this might be more effective as a one-on-one conversation, or maybe you don't want to interrupt the lesson that's going on or something like that. But even if you know you're going to come back to it later, moving on in the moment communicates to the whole class that you're not going to keep them. You're not going to stop what's going on. You're going to let that continue, even if you know that's not true. So the first thing you have to do is stop whatever you're doing. Nothing is more important than making sure your kids are safe, and addressing it right then and there in the moment. And to address it right then and there in the moment, the second step is to name the behavior. And in my opinion, it's important that the behavior be named very specifically. So instead of saying something like, hey, that's inappropriate, let's not do that, I want them to know why whatever that just happened was inappropriate. So I will name it. My sort of like format that I fall back on is, hey, I'm not sure if you realized, but what you just did or said or whatever is actually homophobic, transphobic, racist, sexist, whatever it is. That's sort of my go-to. Not sure if you realized, but that statement you made was sexist. Not sure if you realized, but when you made that gesture, that was actually homophobic. You know, whatever it is, I like to fit it into that framework. So I'm naming specifically what's going on. I'm simply describing whatever it was that I witnessed and giving it a name. So step 3 is make it a teachable moment. This you can use your like teacher spidey senses on, whether or not it's a good time now or whether you should take it to a small group or whatever else. But I have found, I teach high school, but I have found that generally speaking, when I say, hey, I'm not sure if you realize, but that remark you just made was transphobic, the knee-jerk reaction of that kid, you know, 9.5 times out of 10 will be to say to me, oh, I'm not transphobic or I'm not homophobic or whatever else, which in my opinion makes that a great time to stop and have a conversation about our implicit bias and how we all absorb messages from the world that we live in and the society that we live in. And sometimes even if we don't feel those things, they still come out of us because they're all around us. And you may not have meant to hurt someone's feelings or to be offensive, but just because you didn't intend to do that doesn't mean that that didn't happen. And we can have that conversation and we can address it in the moment, which I think is very valuable. But sometimes it can be more valuable to do it small groups or anything like that. But as long as you are making it so that the student understands what is happening and isn't just feeling like they're being picked on or silenced, or they truly understand what's going on in that moment. And the other person that needs to understand what's going on in that moment, step 4, is the targeted student. So you want to make sure that you're supporting whomever was harmed by that action. And don't assume that you know how they want to be supported. Ask what they need, and to the extent possible, provide what it is that they have identified as needing. Now, the last step for me, step 5, is actually kind of the hardest one for me because I'm very like restorative practices. Like in my mind, steps 1 through 4, okay, I've addressed the problem. Everyone's been made whole. Everyone's gotten what they need. Like we're good now, cool. Except we still got to go to step 5, which is to hold students accountable. In the name of equity and fairness, we want to make sure if there is a policy that has been violated and that further action is required in some way, documentation or something else, some kind of a consequence, that's followed through on. Because we want everyone to be treated with equality, or with equity rather. And also sometimes we don't know that things are patterns or happening outside of.
Don't you love that he just stopped himself saying, no, we don't want equality, we want equity?
Room unless
a bit on the nose.
Properly. So it's still important to follow through on that last step of holding everyone accountable, even if like me, you're all touchy-feely and think you're done after step 4. And remember too, this 5-step process is also, it can be applied with just a little bit of tweaking to the adults around you as well. When you hear a coworker say something that is not correct and is not going to make your students safe or welcome, you can do the exact same thing. Stop, address it, name it, have a conversation, support anyone who might have been targeted, and sometimes we got to hold them accountable too. So the same 5 steps can happen no matter what setting you're in, really. So we've done advocate, we've done protect, and my last step, if you will, or our last part of acting on behalf of our students is to disrupt. For me, the difference between protect and disrupt is that disrupt is really trying to get down to the root causes of things and really like rip them out from the root. And one of the root causes of LGBTQ plus discrimination is actually gender bias and gender-based discrimination. You know, if you think about a guy who's walking down the street all alone.
He is about to advocate for removing all gendered language from all classrooms. Watch what's going to happen.
Someone drives by in a car, rolls down their window, and shouts the F slur at them. It's not because they know for sure that that guy's gay, more than likely. It's because that guy is breaking some gender expectation, some norm or rule of masculinity, and the person in the car feels that they get to punish that person for breaking that gendered rule. So the more that we break down gender bias in our own classrooms, not only are we making the spaces safer for our students regardless of their gender, and we're helping with equality in that way, but we're also making it safer for our LGBTQ plus students. So that can mean not grouping students by gender unless there's an actual pedagogical reason to do so. You know, so often it's an easy thing to do when you want to split the group in half. You say, you know, boys over there, girls over here. But then we're reinforcing the idea that there's this binary and that students have to buy into one side of the binary. Our language that we use every day with our students, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, so gendered. And so the image on here is one that I grabbed from Facebook and I kind of love. And it's a whole bunch of different things that you can use besides those gender terms. Some of them, I don't know that I would call it peepadoodles, but maybe that's your style. I'm not gonna stop you if that's your style. I fall more into the like earthlings, friends, that kind of scholars, like that realm of things. But the less that we use gender language, the better. So these are just some, you know, suggestions, some more serious.
Look down here. Ladies and gentle thems. Instead of ladies and gentlemen, they want you to call them ladies and gentle thems. Comrades! Holy shit, they've got comrades right in the middle there. Huh. Why is the Michigan Teacher of the Year teaching through the Michigan Department of Education that teachers should replace gendered language with comrades?
About the ways that some of the ways we could degender language. You know, we want to make sure that we're not making assumptions about our students based on their interests or based on what kinds of interests we think they're supposed to have or behaviors. We don't want to comment on somebody's gender expression or make jokes that somebody is, you know, not masculine or feminine enough or too masculine or too feminine. And sometimes it goes beyond this surface level too, you know, switching boys and girls for, you know, team, let's say, is a pretty surface level change to make. But one of the things we have to do is also interrogate our own unconscious biases. And this is one that I'm always doing constantly, and I hope we're all always doing, is encountering our own our own biases internally and working through them. For example, I'm definitely guilty in the past of saying things like, I need to move some tables. I better get some strong boys to help me out with that. There was no reason it had to be boys. It could have been girls. Or I've thought to myself like, oh, I need some help putting this bulletin board together. I wonder if this hour has any artistic girls in it. Didn't have to be girls. Why did I make that assumption or that connection there? And when we make those kinds of statements in front of our students, no matter how much our explicit messages are ones of equality, we're undercutting those messages with those unconscious messages when we allow those other kinds of words or ideas to float to the surface. So part of disrupting then becomes that self-reflection. What is it that you hold biases about in your heart? Because remember, we live in a society that reinforces biases in all of us all the time. So it's not a failing to have biases inside your own heart and mind. The failing is to let them go uninterrogated and to continue them that way. So what biases do I hold? How is my practice needing to change in order to be as inclusive of students as I possibly can be? And that will help us eradicate the root both of gender-based discrimination and of LGBTQ biases as well. And then how do I learn more about this? You know, now we get to this, once we have advocated, protected, and disrupted on behalf of our students, now we have to see what's working. I encourage you to do some kind of a climate survey in your building. GLSEN has surveys available to you. And if you want to tackle doing a GLSEN school climate survey, I'll never say that's a bad idea, but even just talking to your students about their experiences, I think no matter how well you know your kids in your classroom and your school, you will learn things that you did not know before. And after you've done that learning and you've done your own self-reflection, now we end up going back around in that cycle, right? We've learned new information and now we're going to have to reevaluate our practices based on that new information. So the whole process ends again with the idea of reflecting, learning, and moving back into the next round of that cycle. I believe the next part is questions.
Why on earth would you think that?
Right. I just threw a lot out there and I apologize, but I got a lot to say. So what kind of questions?
All good. I'm going to stop sharing so that folks can, we can all see each other a little bit better. Definitely take advantage of the chance to ask questions. All right. Oh, did somebody just wave their hand at me? Or no? If you did, take yourself off mute and actually interrupt me.
Interrupt us.
All right. So then I will move us into the next sort of bit of things here.
This is the part I really want to see.
So we're going to move into an activity.
Oh, maybe not. I want to see what they're doing in curriculum.
So for folks who are not familiar, we're going to use Mentimeter, which is an online tool. And so there are
What strategies can be used to make elementary classrooms more gender inclusive? Hello.
3 different ways that you can access the screen here and the survey that we're going to be doing, or I guess it's kind of a survey. So you can either take a picture of the QR code with your phone. You can go to menti.com and enter that code, or you can, hopefully, if somebody can drop that link into the chat, you can just click right on the link there. Thank you very much. And yeah, so I'll give you just a moment to do that, and we are all I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and then I'll pull up. I'm gonna pull up the screen so you can see how we're answering. All right, I'm stopping sharing now.
While that's happening, Kim, someone has asked a question in the chat.
Oh, great! By all means.
Real quick. Claire asked, how do you encourage colleagues to try new, less biased phrases when they don't realize they're using them? I think it's a great point. So I think that this is a great moment for calling in versus calling out. I'm glad we talked about that earlier, actually. So when you have a colleague that you know they're going to, they're going to respond, or you hope they're going to respond favorably to this idea, then that's a great time to have that one-on-one conversation. And again, just start with something like what you would do with a student. Hey, I'm not sure if you realized, but, and then describe what it is that you heard or saw and the reason that you have, that you've taken an issue with it. You know, not sure if you realized, but when you said that phrase, you were actually reinforcing the idea that girls can't do science or whatever it was, you know.
Why is it buffering?
And hopefully that person will have that moment of like, oh, I didn't even realize. And then you can open the
Come on, internet, don't fail me.
a wider conversation. If they get defensive, that might be a great place to say something like, I just wanted to let you know.
Oh, come on.
So you could reflect on that. I actually have to go, though. I have to go make copies now. So peace out.
This is the best part, and it's like buffering.
You know, you don't have to get into an argument with somebody if they're not going to be there for it. But having that moment of calling in for many people, I think, is enough to at least make them think and evaluate. And then providing alternatives instead, especially if it's something like, you know, boys and girls or.
Hang on. I'm just going to pause it just for a second. And I'm going to see if it loads a little bit more so we don't have to continue with this buffering issue. Just for a moment. Guys, what we are watching right now is a video that was created by the Michigan Department of Education. They have it in a secret Google Drive that I was sent today. We have been downloading a whole bunch of videos because they turned off the ability to download, but of course there's always ways around everything. And so there are people right now that are downloading all the videos. There are half a dozen of these trainings that are at least 90, they're like 90 minutes long, 80 minutes long, what have you. And this is the LGBTQ plus, I guess, teacher training project that the Department of Education, funded by the CDC, has been implementing in Michigan schools, and we now have all their trainings. Huzzah! But we're watching one of them right now, and it's just buffering a minute, and so we're waiting to see if we can make it a little bit better.
Or something that's so like natural for me. I'm still working on trying not to say guys. That's my like kryptonite, is calling everyone guys. And so I'm working really hard on eliminating that one for myself. And so once you have those conversations with people, providing alternatives, other things they could say instead. And if they're really like interested, like one of the things I've asked is I've asked certain coworkers of mine to literally flick me on the shoulder or on the arm when they hear me say guys. Like,
oh, come on.
Just some things that I can get it out of my brain, right?
Let's see if I can downgrade the quality a little bit and see if that helps.
All right, good afternoon. Awesome.
Okay, hang on.
Peace out. You know, you don't have to get into an argument with somebody if they're not going to be there for it. But having that moment of calling in for many people, I think, is enough to at least make them think and evaluate. And then providing alternatives instead, especially if it's something like, you know, boys and girls or something that's so like natural for me. I'm still working on trying not to say guys. That's my like kryptonite, is calling everyone guys. And so I'm working really hard on eliminating that one for myself. And so once you have those conversations with people, providing alternatives, other things they could say instead. And if they're really like interested, like one of the things I've asked is I've asked certain coworkers of mine to literally flick me on the shoulder or on the arm when they hear me say guys. Like just some things that I can get it out of my brain, right? And so sometimes approaching it in a place of like, we're in this together, we're a team, and we all have these biases we're trying to eradicate, and let me help you so that we can all be better. That kind of an attitude goes a long way, I have found in general.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here now so that folks can see. And yeah, so, and you can see many folks have already answered, but the first question, what are some strategies that can be used to make elementary classrooms more gender inclusive? We've talked about books quite a bit, which is great. So that's coming up. Rick got us thinking about books, which is awesome. Let's see, we've also got other curriculum, like broader than just books, signage, posters, putting up posters that show that have gender neutral terms, that show different kinds of families and kids sort of expressing their gender in different ways. Let's see, not using boys and girls language. Yeah, showing different kinds of families too is such a great, you know, and especially in elementary school, we do a lot of things on family. And so providing opportunities for students to see different kinds of families is great. Using non-gender terms, again, asking children for their pronouns. Yes, this is great.
Great to do in elementary classrooms. Yeah.
Books. Oh my gosh, your list is like fantastic. And just so that you know, we'll be sharing this back with you. So you'll have all of this, all these strategies that you're coming up with here as well. different colors. Yeah, getting away from like pink and blue. Yep. Signage. All those things that we do to show ourselves, show like fill our classroom space and have that be reflective of, different kinds of people and different identities. Working with parents. Yes, so important. All right, we are going to move to the next one. And so the next question, what strategies can you use in the middle or high school classroom to be more gender inclusive? So we focused first on elementary, now we're looking at middle and high school.
At least there's some sort of acknowledgement that there's age appropriate things, I suppose. But let's see if they actually come up with anything
Inclusive
different.
Language. Some of this is the same, regardless of what age level you're working with. So that's really important to keep in mind.
They're going to say all the same things
across a kid's or a student's, sort of school trajectory to be able to see consistent messaging in
gender neutral curriculum. Gender neutral curriculum.
When they move from school to school.
I see pronouns popping up a lot, asking about pronouns on day one. Model the use of pronouns, making it an option. I just wanted to hop on that one real quick and emphasize too that it's important to ask, and you're right, you don't. It's important to not insist. There may be students who may not be comfortable sharing, or I know as a transgender person, there would have been times in my life where no matter what answer I gave to that question, I would have felt a little bit like I was lying. But the way that I do it personally in my classroom is that I have a Google form at the start of the year that's got all the, what's your preferred method of contacting me, or, what's your learning style, all that kind of like beginning of the year stuff. And one of the questions I ask is, what pronouns would you like me to use for you?
Is this person asking for the private contact information of students? Like, is this trans by 9th grade English teacher of the year in Michigan asking for his students' cell phone numbers to contact them privately in a Google form? Is that what I just heard? Does anyone else have a problem with that?
And then would you like me to follow up about those pronouns? That way we can have a conversation. And then it's also important to ask before you contact home, especially for a student that's using one that doesn't necessarily align with their assigned gender at birth. Is it safe for me to use these pronouns with your friends, with other people in the school, with your family, etc.?
Is it safe for me, the 9th grade English teacher who now has your private cell phone, to use the pronouns that you are telling me with your parents? And this, ladies and gentlemen, is why we watch these trainings from start to finish, because you will hit something like this eventually, and you just don't know where it's going to be.
Because sometimes, they may be comfortable with you or with being in school, but it would be unsafe for them to be outed at home. And our priority always has to be student safety.
Yeah, thanks so much, Owen. That's such an important piece of the puzzle in terms of how we do pronouns and maintain that sense of safety for all of our students. Yeah, so there've been some great suggestions here around middle and high school and ways to make things more inclusive. I love the idea of like musicians, artists, like depending on your content area, there are lots of opportunities. We heard recently a math teacher talk about using having students as part of a math project, I think on area or something like that, like that they had to make up like one of the assignments was that they could create a pride flag where they had to like make sure that all of the different areas were exactly, that were correct measurements and things like that. So there are lots of ways to incorporate content.
They're making a pride flag in math class to demonstrate area. Making a pride flag definitely sounds like it teaches math to me.
or incorporate LGBTQ plus content, regardless of your, whatever what you're teaching. All right. Yep. Awesome. All right. So we're going to move to the next one here. So we've heard a lot too coming up around health and sex ed, and I'm going to add PE into this actually. So folks just want to take a couple minutes here to think about what are strategies to make sure that our health and sex ed and PE classrooms are more LGBTQ plus inclusive. So moving beyond just gender, but also thinking.
Stop gender segregation in gym class and in health class. You want to stop gender segregation in health and gym? Does that strike anyone else like it might, perhaps be problematic?
Thinking about sexual orientation here. Yeah, I just want to affirm this, like, stopping segregating our students by gender to teach health and sex ed. That does a disservice to all of our students, regardless of their gender identity. That all of our students need to be learning about all of the different bodies that people come in, and there are ways of doing that that don't require us to separate our students by gender. Yeah, making sure that students have a place, that any student who wants to change has privacy to do that. If they feel uncomfortable or if they want some additional privacy other than just being in a locker room, providing that opportunity. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, you lost to a girl, right? This, right. So interrupting these, the sort of root causes of some of this stuff around sexism and misogyny, right? About sort of denigrating girls and women, and being at the heart of a lot of this stuff. All right. All fantastic. These are great, great ideas.
Beautiful.
Non-binary changing spaces. Awesome. Eric, these are fantastic. We're going to just
non-binary changing spaces. How many non-binary students does this teacher have that they're suggesting non-binary changing spaces?
Take maybe about 10 more seconds if there are any other suggestions that folks have. Yep, not talking about boys' bodies and girls' bodies, but using language that refers more to anatomy as opposed to gender. People who have penises, people who have vulvas is another.
I was literally just going to pause the video and say, she's about to say people who have penises and people who have vulvas rather than men and women. And then she went and said it for me. We're not going to teach boys and girls anymore in health class. We're going to teach some people have a penis and some people have a vulva. Michigan Department of Education, funded by the CDC.
Another way to use that to talk about different bodies. All right. Fantastic. So I'm going to move to the last one here. We just did that one too. So I also just want to provide folks an opportunity to share what is one strategy that you want to implement. So this is about your own practice, as you're sort of thinking about everything that we've been talking about here today in our time together.
I just want to remind everyone as they're doing this question that the reason that, so teacher training is one of the easiest things that you can find on school websites, and it is one of the easiest things to FOIA. And there's always teacher, and this is one of the things that people overlook the most when they're doing school investigation streams, because, you think you're looking at curriculum and you think you're looking for videos and all that stuff, and that's all fine. But every single school, well, maybe not every, but the vast majority of school districts are going to have a teacher professional development program. And oftentimes, that professional development program is going to come through the equity department. Not always, but often. And if you can figure out who is in charge of teacher professional development in your school district, you can figure out what types of trainings they're doing for the teachers. Oftentimes, these are going to be listed on the school district website, and you can make the assumption that any teacher trainings listed on the school district website are available to all teachers within that school district. If you can find out what the teachers are being given for professional development, you can find out what's happening in the classroom. Because what is taught in those professional development trainings will always make its way into the classroom and into the administration and into policy. And you're paying for all of this. All this is taxpayer funded. You have a right to know what's going on. Kelly, thank you for the super chat. Confusion causes chaos. Chaos causes vulnerability. Vulnerable people can be conquered. Is confusion the key? Well, I think that you're making a great point there, Kelly. Well, that's what they're trying to do, is create confusion. As always, the 4 goals of the woke left are: gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, which you could say is creating confusion, attack capitalism, usher in your Marxist utopia. So if we're talking about creating confusion, destabilizing the system is a pretty good way to create confusion.
Together, and you're sort of reflecting on your own practice, what's at least one strategy that you want to implement for yourself into your own practice as a teacher, as a result of our conversation here today? Awesome. Having signage. Some of this stuff is so simple, but it really has such a big impact. But there are definitely things that we can do right away. Working on correct vocabulary, my friends, right? It's great. Yeah,
Hang on, I got a super chat from Cooley. Any way to get the climate surveys they talked about? Yeah, you should be able. There is not an insignificant chance that you can find that information publicly on the website. And if you can't find it publicly, and the way you're going to find it publicly is going to be, so if you're talking about the general climate survey, I'm pretty sure those are administered by GLSEN. So you might be able to find them on GLSEN's website. But the other thing you can do is oftentimes school districts will actually post the results of these climate surveys on their website as through their equity office or what have you. And so you can usually find a PDF of the results, and the results will tell you exactly what's in the survey. So I would go to GLSEN if you're looking for like the base model, but call the school district or look on their website for the actual results of it. And oftentimes schools have done these surveys year over year over year as well. So you may be able to find several years of data. Vince says, I can't believe this training. I just taught at a UCLA summer program and had to sit through a training where they kept hammering us with don't exchange contact info with the students endlessly. I mean, I think that one of the most creepy parts, again, the reason why we watch these things from start to finish is these people will just say things in the middle of the training that don't actually relate to the content of the training. Like we learned that 9th grade teacher of the year was asking for students' private contact information when he was just answering a question. Like, as an aside, I have a Google form where I ask people to fill out with their contact information. You're like, what? And it's asides like that that are oftentimes the most revealing when you're watching this sort of thing. So I know that people don't always like sitting through. This is an 80-minute training. We're almost done. I know that people don't like watching the whole thing. I know that you think this is a waste of your time. It's boring. You don't want to sit through it. You don't like listening to it. If you find these things in your school district, you have got to sit down and watch them or send them to me. And we can all watch them together and make it a little bit of a better experience for everyone. And then we can all learn too, by the way. But and you guys can always send me stuff at activelyunwoke@gmail.com, or my direct messages are open on Twitter. but you have got to sit down and watch them. I promise you. I know it's a couple hours out of your life. I know, but you've got to sit down and watch them and listen to them. And if you don't want to do it, send it to me. I will watch them on the channel. I will decipher all of it. I will tell you what sticks out to me as something that you need to pay attention to. I will explain it to you. But please do not ignore this stuff, because this is where they give away the keys to the kingdom.
That addition, I've heard Owen talk about that before as well. This idea of like not just asking for pronouns, but asking how to use them appropriately, is such an important piece of the conversation. Yep, addressing issues right away. Calling in, awesome. Holding our colleagues accountable. Including content in the curriculum. Fantastic. This is all good stuff. I will take just a couple more seconds here for folks to respond. This is great. Absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you so much to all of you for sharing your thoughts and your perspectives, the things that you want to do, that you're going to do. Awesome about Shakespeare. I love it. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. And I just want to provide an opportunity. We have just a few more minutes here, and I just want to make sure that folks have had an opportunity to ask any last questions. So as I said, we've got just a couple minutes. Is there any sort of lingering questions that you're just like, I really needed this before the end of this workshop? And now is a great time to ask them.
Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate it.
A couple questions in the chat right away.
Great.
Kristen asks, how do we get you for a PD at our school?
If you contact us, we will, yeah.
Oh, good. Coming to a Michigan school near you soon. It's exactly what they wanted.
Reach
Look
out
how
to us,
happy
and
they
we'll have our
are.
contact information will be in the follow-up email.
Yes, we'll come to your
And,
schools and do
yeah.
the trainings.
Yep, absolutely.
Kristen, I know you're serious. I'm serious too. Come on. What was the resource with windows, mirrors, and sliding glass doors? That's based on the research of Rudine Sims Bishop.
I actually like this idea
Is
of
there an S
windows,
on the end of
mirrors,
Rudine
and
Sims
sliding
Bishop?
glass doors, for
Rudine
the
Sims
record. I
Bishop?
think that's a good idea.
I'm not sure if there's an S on the end of that Bishop.
Not everything they say is
But
bad.
the paper she wrote is literally called Windows, Mirrors, and Sliding Glass Doors. Good book recommendations that focus on teaching adults to be more inclusive of LGBTQ+. Trying to think off the top of my head here. Gosh, all the titles just fell out of the side of my ear.
Which one are you trying to answer?
Resources for helping adults to become more inclusive.
Somebody just recommended, it's been around for a while, but it's, now I'm gonna lose it because you've said that you're gonna lose it. It's a gender creative, I'm gonna try to find it in my phone. I know right where it is. The Gender Creative Child, Pathways for Nurturing and Supporting Children Who Live, it's got a longer title than that, Outside Gender Boxes, is a great, it's just sort of a informative, kind of some background that might be helpful.
Oh my God.
That's the first thing that came to my mind, but there may be others.
There's one that I've,
what was the title? I'm sorry. Outside Gender Boxes?
It's called The Gender Creative Child. And if you just search the Gender Creative Child, it'll pop right up.
Yeah.
The Gender
I was gonna add to that.
Creative
There's one, I
Child.
believe it's called LGBTQ+ Youth, a Guided Workbook. That one's a pretty good one for giving resources that you could use with students and stuff like that.
Awesome.
Do we have time for me to ask a quick question of Owen?
Absolutely.
I was just wondering, because I loved when you shared about kind of like the specific phrasing of, hey, I don't know if you realize this, but that comment was transphobic or what have you. Do you have an experience you can share of a time when that interaction kind of ended up rocky and kind of how you navigated that, either with students or adults?
Yeah, I've occasionally had it happen where a student has said something to me like, I know, or they have they have communicated a certain belief for like, well, yeah, well, my religion says that that's whatever, or something like that. And what I usually do in those moments is I try to shut things down quickly. I believe in general in not getting in arguments with children, especially in front of other children. So one of the ways that I will shut that down as quickly as I can is I'll say something like, I'm glad you realized that, or something like that. And then I'll say, but speech like that isn't tolerated in my classroom. And then I'll try to just keep it moving. And if they're going to have a bigger problem with that, then I'll tell them something like, we can talk about this later if it's really bothering you, but just know that's not acceptable here, and we're going to get back to whatever we're doing. Because I'm not going to get in an argument about it with them. You're not going to change anybody's minds in 2 minutes arguing in the middle of math class. So just, I'm glad you're aware that it was transphobic. We don't do that here. That's not okay. Let's get back to the lesson. And
I want to know how this person defines transphobic.
Thanks. It's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to share my screen again just so that folks can have all the information that you need. I put the code there in the chat, but just so that you know, if you're looking for social work CEs, we've got all the information we need, so you're all set. If you are looking for sketches, the code is LGBTQ+ safe classroom. Sorry, that was a little long, and I apologize for that. And just so that you know, again, we're going to be following up with an email that includes the PowerPoint in a PDF format, that resource list we talked about, and the evaluation hyperlink will be there as well. And we will have the Mentimeter results. So all those strategies that
Hit me at activelyunwoke@gmail.com, radical moderate.
You have those as well. So, and I think there are links to the videos too. We got all kinds of good stuff for you. And this is our last training of the year. So
all right, guys. Well, I think that is going to round out the Michigan Department of Education training on inclusive classrooms today. I want to thank everyone that worked very hard to download all of the videos from this video list. Again, let me just show you. Hang on real quick. We have a whole list of trainings here that are available that they tried to prevent us from downloading, but there have been at least 2, possibly 3 people that have been working on getting these trainings downloaded, because you can get around that. It's really not that hard. Let me just put my email address in the chat. My email address is activelyunwoke@gmail.com. Anytime you guys want to send me stuff, you can send it to activelyunwoke@gmail.com, and that'll all come right to me. So thank you to everyone who downloaded the videos. And the reason we did that is because the Michigan Department of Education requested that the content of these trainings cannot be utilized or shared without their express permission. And my position is, you're funded by the taxpayers, and I don't really give a flip if you give me permission to show stuff that you posted publicly on the internet. This is all public. This is not password protected, and that has been paid for by the taxpayer. We are going to watch more of these trainings. Now, my hope is that they don't take the recordings down, because what happens is they find out that I did this stream, they freak out, they take all their links down, they take all the files down, but we've already got them downloaded anyway. So we're going to be watching more of these trainings, whether the Michigan Department of Education likes it or not. And by the way, this is the list for last year's. There is a whole list, not there. There's a whole list for people in Michigan. Let me just pop this link in the chat. If anyone is in Michigan, that is the Google Doc for this year's trainings. And a lot of them haven't happened yet. So you can see, you guys are allowed to sign up for these things. They're doing all of the same trainings all again. But we're watching last year's because apparently they're just doing a rehash. And we're going to be working our way through these, and I'm going to write about them because the taxpayers are paying for this and they deserve to know what's going on. And then as soon as, you know what, if the taxpayers and the public see what the teachers are learning and they are completely okay with it, then that is their choice. I do not view it as my job to tell you what is and is not appropriate for your children. There are some people that are going to see these trainings and they're going to go, I feel a little bit uncomfortable with this being done in my kid's school. There's some people that are going to see these trainings. They're like, this is not a big deal. I don't know why you're freaking out. Everyone's allowed to have a different perspective. I'm not going to tell you what perspective to have. I am just showing you the information, and we'll be doing a fair bit more of this over the coming week to work our way through these trainings. As a reminder, guys, if you want to follow along, the very best thing you can do is sign up for my Substack. That is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. And you can sign up for free, but if you want to become a paid supporter for $5 a month, $50 a year, I do have a goal next month of getting 75 new paid supporters. Now, the reason I'm talking about next month's goal is you guys have already met this month's goal. So I'm already on track for this month, and we can get a head start on meeting next month's goal. And the reason I have these goals is there is a certain place that I want this Substack to be by the end of the year to facilitate me doing Unwoke activism on a full-time basis. I want to work for you. I don't want to work for any organization. I don't want to work for any political candidate. I don't want to work for any partisan group. I want to work for you, to show you what's going on, to provide you the information that you're not getting anywhere else on the internet, and to let you decide for yourself what you are comfortable with and what you're going to do about it. So if you like the work I'm doing and you want to see me keep doing it and you want to see more of it, head over to head over to Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com, sign up for a paid membership, $5 a month, $50 a year. You can do more than that if you want to. If you want to head over to activelyunwoke.com/support, you can find other ways to support me. I am on Locals. I have an awesome community on Locals. If you're looking for just like a little bastion of sanity, then come join my Locals community. They really do have some of the best people on the internet. I love my community. They really do keep me sane. So you can join as a paying member on my Locals community. That's kb.locals.com. You can become a member on my Patreon, which I don't really talk about that much, but does have some great perks at all different levels. If you want like nice extra perks and stuff like that, Patreon is the place to go. But my Substack is going to be my content hub moving forward. It is the thing that I'm investing the most in. It is the thing that I'm building out, and it is because of you that I'm able to do that. So I appreciate everyone that supports my work on there, and I will be hopefully putting an article up about this training sometime tonight. As a reminder for everyone who is in my Master Your Psychology workshop, the DISC workshop, as part of my Unwoke Your Work series, we are going to be meeting for part 2 of our workshop in about 45 minutes. And so I will look forward to talking with you then, and then we'll hopefully get that article up tomorrow. I will be back streaming tomorrow at 5 p.m. We might actually be watching another one of these Michigan training things just to kind of work our way through it. That's for happy hour. Happy hour is my regular stream on Friday where we watch woke training and have a beer or two and talk about it. So it might look a little similar to today's stream because we do have some stuff we need to work through, but I promise you it's going to be worth it. This stuff is crazy. All right, guys, that's all I have for right now. Thank you for watching on whatever platform you're watching on, including Odyssey, Rockfin, Rumble. Please make sure you mount that like button on the way out the door. Please make sure you subscribe on whatever platform you're watching on, and I will see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Take care, guys. Have a great rest of your day. We'll see you soon.